Yeah, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that you are Eric Teperman, originally from New England and now living in Myrtle Beach. No, where are you from?
I'm from New York, not New England.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought New York was part of New England. I apologize.
Nope, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, Jackson.
Originally from New York, now living in Myrtle Beach.
Yes.
And I just wanted people to know your name since you're not known to everybody here. I'm so happy to have you. Thank you for coming and reading your work tonight. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure. I was very surprised that you asked me the first time, and I was surprised when you asked me again. And I'm always surprised. So anyway, here we are.
Very good. Well, Jai Baba, everyone, and we're delighted that y'all are here tonight. Eric's work is wonderful, very devotional, and I'm just delighted that he's sharing. And if everyone wants to mute their microphones, we can maybe do a little bit of Q&A at the end if we've got time. That would be a nice way to bring the evening to an end. So, Eric, I'm going to pass this over to you. Let you get started.
Jai Baba. I see many people that I know there. Hi, and it seems to me that the people who are here tonight are people who already love Meher Baba. So he's not a stranger to anybody here tonight. And the only thing I will say as an introduction to this evening is, excuse me, is that these poems are for Meher Baba, the one for whom, you know, for people for whom God himself is not enough. I will also, rather than just reading poems all straight through, to break it up, I would like to share just a few stories of my memories from being in India with the Mandali. And I'm not sure if any of these stories you have heard before. If you have, well, forgive me, but I know we all like listening to the same stories over and over again. But if this is one of those, I hope that it's a story you'll enjoy hearing again. Okay. Many have loved you through years gone by, and even more so now. My words to you cannot be so much different than any of theirs. None of us sought you on our own. It was always you who drew us out of our misery, out of our happiness, out of our complacency. The only words I want to speak to you now are the words I would say in a mundane conversation with you. Everything else seems like distance to me. If people could see what hides in my heart, they would count it no sin, just all normal desires of our human race. But after all you have done for me, what I see in myself is treason. Mine is treachery beyond name and betrayal beyond description in light of what you give me every second of every day. More than you are God, you are my one true master. You and only you can protect me from myself. You have bound me to you forever with the perfect ties of love. But you have bound me to you also with the snakeskin ties of all my weaknesses and deceits. You and only you can bring me past myself, but still keep me by your side. Please, Baba, keep me. Keep me with you forever. My Lord, who is easier to describe than you, the indescribable one? I can tell anyone I meet all about you, whether about your real and true greatness or your inexhaustible, endless tenderness. But who in this world can I really tell about me? Is it even possible for anyone to understand words which will sound completely senseless? Oops. Tech problems. And without cause, words which will sound senseless and without cause. My parents loved and adored me, yet without you, I would feel like the orphan of all orphans, abject and lost. I have found welcoming people wherever I've gone, but if I don't have you, then no one is more alone in this world than me. I have always had things to do in this life, responsibilities and talents. But if you had not set me to my tasks, every activity would feel more vacant of life than every sterile stone that hurtles through space. Every place I've ever lived has always been just another place to lay my head at night, to have breakfast in the morning. Who in this world can understand that I have never felt I was home, except when in the warm embrace of your hospitality? Wherever I am and whoever I'm with, whatever I'm doing, it always feels like you are already there. To whom can I say any of this and have them understand these are not figures of speech, but my pulsing lifelong experience? Since knowing you, I know that real meaning exists. More than that, I know that the meaning in all things flows endlessly from you and endlessly back to you. More than that, I know that you are all meaning and give meaning to all things, whether in the present, the past, or future, whether invisible or even unaccounted for. But even if all were to vanish in this instant or the next, you in your sublime and unseen infinite glory would still be all the meaning there is, and meaning enough for anyone, even if they had nothing but you. The real question is not, who am I? It is not, why don't all men treat all men as the brothers they truly are? It is not why peace or justice seems so elusive in this world. I am the slave of my beloved for now and all time. So no, the real question to me is simple. Why do I not remember my beautiful Lord night and day without a break? He has shown me his face. He has shown me his love. He has shown me the hand of such unending kindness that he can never be denied. He has poured his pure essence deep into the corrupt and leaking cup of my head and my heart. And he has revealed his beautiful self to me. How is it then, I continually ask, that with such beauty now before me, now within me, how is it that the thought of his face, his person, don't glow continuously throughout my whole being? There is no mystery deeper than this, and no question more burning than this. All other dilemmas of this world and the next fade in consequence compared to this. The noise of all turmoil I dismiss as delusions as I see my dear Lord in all men and all things. Why then, I ask, do I still want anything or anyone at all? This, my dear friends, is the question of all questions. And in light of his gifts, how could it be otherwise? I'd like to share a story that Adi K. Irani shared with me one day back in the 1970s. I can't remember what year. Have most of you met Adi? I think probably many of you have. Well, anyway, Adi was not one of those who got to go on the must hunts as often as some of the other of Baba's Mandali, like Baidul and Kaka and Erich. But Baba did bring along some of the other men at times because it was so arduous, and he had to make sure that there was always somebody with enough energy to keep on going and do what had to be done. And sometimes Adi would be brought along on these trips. And he told me this great story about how one day was the end of a very long day. I don't remember if it was a successful day or not a successful day, meaning did they find a must that day that they were after that day. But it was the end of a very long day, and they went to the train station. It was already way past when the last train was going to the next place that they were bound for. But they went to the train station anyway. They had no place else to stay. They were someplace deep in India. And they did what they often did and what many people in India do, which is they would just sleep on the platform there and wait until the next day for the train to come. They unrolled their, it's funny, if you read the accounts, it always said their thin bedroll. Well, the thin bedroll is just a woolen blanket. That's all it is. So they unrolled their thin bedrolls onto the concrete of the platform and stretched out to go to sleep. Baba had 4 men with him on this trip. And the way they would do it is Baba would lie down, and then the 4 men would station themselves around him so that they'd be surrounding Baba so that nobody could approach or get to Baba without having to go through them. And the 3 who were to sleep immediately conked out the moment they were on their way down to laying their heads down. And Adi, as it turned out, that night was the first one assigned to keep watch. So Adi is awake and he's keeping watch. The night is very, very still. And he sees at the far end of the platform 2 urchin boys. I don't know if I'm coming through. Urchin, U-R-C-H-I-N, they're vagrant, homeless children. They're just 2 boys. And they're awake in the middle of the night, and they're walking now up the platform, and Adi sees they're walking directly towards where Baba and the men are all stationed. And as they get closer and closer, just as they're about 15 feet away or so, Adi starts to raise his hand to tell them silently, go away, go around, don't come here. As soon as Adi's hand is halfway up, Baba gets up on one elbow, whom Adi had thought Baba was already asleep, even though he's not really asleep. Nevertheless, he would do what passes for sleep at times. So Baba immediately gets up on one elbow and holds up a hand to Adi. Don't make the motion. And with the other hand, he looks over his shoulder and gestures to the boys, come, come. In the West, we go like this, come. In the East, they go like that. So Baba's going like this to the boys, come, come. So the boys, they come around the mandali, and step over one of the men who is surrounding Baba with his own body, and Baba motions for them to lie down. It's chilly, it's the nighttime, you know, even in India, it's cold at night. So these boys who essentially they have, what do they have on? A pair of tattered shorts and a torn shirt. So they lie down next to Baba. Baba puts his arm over them and they go to sleep like that. You know, it's just such an amazing story. I don't know what else to say about it except the story itself. That's the story as Adi told me. In the next morning, the boys got up, Baba got up, and they got up, and Baba smiled as only he can smile and bade them goodbye. And I often wonder, whatever happened to these boys? You know, Baba never revealed himself, but I can't imagine them forgetting him for a day, for a single day in their life. You know, and it's sort of like when you hear the ancient stories about Ram or Krishna or Jesus in their travels, they would meet people who did not know who they were, and yet they had the encounter. You know, they had the encounter. Okay. Lord, even though you care for me night and day, and I know your eye is ever on me, nurturing my love for you, never do I expect to see your face. You have taken me somehow out of my life and given me a place in your life. And I am more content with that than the oceans are in their beds, and more content with that than all the stars swirling in their skies. I am not fit even to rake your leaves, but still you keep finding things for me to do in this life so that I can give my all, always for you. My minutes and my moments, you have made them all your own. My thoughts and my urges, you have drenched them in your name. Even my profligate ways cannot play out the way they did before, as they have all found their way under your wing. Even though I don't but see glimpses of you as you go about your business, just seeing the back of your coat fills me with a quiet joy that I can neither describe nor comprehend. And the knowledge of your constant nazar sustains me in all things. Long ago, you took me from my life and brought me under your eaves. I drink the same water as you drink. Your silence has become my arti.
Beautiful.
Hey, Baba.
You too, Baba.
Beloved Meher Baba, even the perfect masters of our age weep from your love, weep from love for you. So where is their strength in us, we who are so frail, so fraught, and who seemingly have no love? Please help us to join the ranks of your true lovers so that we may serve you throughout time and eternity, as you deserve nothing less. How well you love and serve us, we who are so halting, so doubtful, and so weak of spirit. It is truly beyond calculation and comprehension. The one and only great mystery of our age is why we don't lay down all motives of all of our lives, but you, every second of every day. Help us to love you so that your rhythm has replaced the beating of our hearts, so that the following of your movements has replaced all of our restless desires, and so that all of our maneuvers of self-preservation have yielded to the endless cascades of your love. The angels and saints and all perfect masters are overthrown in awe by your beauty. You are revealed even to us in all your human glory. And now at long last, we are overthrown too. How can someone, anyone at all, a person so steeped in confused self-indulgence suddenly stop for a moment and be able to sing? Sing with the voice of sure love for God. Sing with a love that can make even stones weep and cause all the birds to stand still in wonder. This is a welcome mystery that happens in our world and does not need explaining. It happens again and again to the delight of all who hear and to the relief and salvation of the singers themselves. It need not even be a song. It could be any expression of the love, the desperation and joy that are beyond the confinements of our world. It could be anything. And in that anything, you will find our beloved silent soul singing out in it, always finding a way and a time and a place and a person in whom to sing out. It is the eternal silent song, vibrating through all that is, and which is waiting always to comfort us, awaken us, and to guide us back to itself.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. This is a story that I will say has a little interesting side story. I don't know if it's true, maybe like most of you, but shortly after coming to Baba and hearing about Mehera, I would wonder, excuse me, did Mehera ever disobey Baba? You know, this was a silent question that I kept to myself, even though on my very first trip to India, Mehera was very, very kind in giving me so much of her time personally. And I guess it was because she did that right from the start that it emboldened me one day, a few years later, when I came up onto the porch and the seat on the porch next to her. Now, you know that she had her own seat in the corner, but there was another chair that she used between that chair and the entrance to the bungalow. So there was this other chair that Mehera would sit in sometimes. There was more in the middle of the porch. So she was sitting in that chair that day. And I came up and the chair, the little stool to her left, which would be to the right of her, was vacant. And being the nervy guy that I am, I didn't even stop to think twice. I probably shouldn't have, but I said to her, Mehera, can I sit down next to you? And she said yes. She let me sit there. I found out later that men often did not sit next to Mehera. Nevertheless, she allowed me to sit there that day, and I think a couple of more times as years went by. Nevertheless, this day, I was sitting there, and as most of you, if not all of you know, this conversation mostly centers around Mehera, but sometimes somebody else, one of the other ladies, or even one of the pilgrims would have a story that would come about naturally in the course of things. And today, one of the other women who was sitting on the steps that lead upstairs, the focus was now on her because she had picked up the thread of something Mehera had said, and was relating a story in depth, and all the attention was on her. And all of a sudden, this question that I had had all these years within me, it's like it just popped out. It was almost like Baba was providing the moment and the impetus, you know, the opportunity and the impetus to ask this question. And I said to Mehera, who was not even looking at the other Mandali member, she was sort of looking straight ahead off into the distance or whatever she's seeing, no doubt thinking about Baba. But I said to her, Mehera, did you ever disobey Baba? And she looked at me, and without missing a beat, she said, yes, I did. And you could tell that this instance has never left her consciousness. It's always sort of back there, you know, in the back of her mind. So she then proceeded to relate the story that I'm going to relate to you now. And forgive me if I tell it in Mehera's voice, so it'll just flow more naturally. So when I say I, it's just Mehera speaking. It's easier for me to tell that way. So forgive me for doing it like that. I hope it doesn't offend anybody. So she said, and you know, I wish I could remember the place. It was not Satara, it was another place. So Mehera says, we were at blah, blah, blah. We were at this place, and it was a place where we were stopping for a while. And because we were stopping for a while, Baba made certain provisions for our staying there. And one of the things he did was he procured a horse because he knows how much I love horses. And I heard him calling me, and I looked out of the bungalow, and Baba was standing in the yard next to a horse. It was a very large horse. And I went out and came up to Baba and the horse. It was a beautiful horse, and Baba was beaming. And he said, I've gotten this horse for you. And I was so, you know, I can't remember exactly what Mehera said at this moment, but you get the gist of that. So then Baba says to me, Mehera, will you please ride the horse for me? So I looked at the horse, and I could see by the size of the horse that I could not get up on the horse by myself. And I said, yes, Baba, but then I turned around and went back to the bungalow to go get a little step ladder so I could get up onto the horse. So when I came back out of the bungalow with the step ladder and I looked at Baba, I could see that his entire mood was ruined and he was fuming. He was very angry. So I hurried up to him and I said, Baba, what's wrong? What did I do? Because immediately the first thing Mehera is thinking is she did something wrong to ruin Baba's mood. And Baba said, didn't I ask you to ride the horse for me? And I said, yes, Baba, but I could see that the horse was too big for me to get up onto it. So I went back to the bungalow to get a step stool to climb up and get on the horse. And Baba said, don't you think I know that? And, you know, in the silence, as after she told me about Baba's reaction, there was a lot going on that I'll tell you about in a moment. So, you know, as she's looking at me, you know, she's just looking at me in silence, and there's a lot passing in that moment in silence. So she says, Baba said, don't you think I know that? You should have tried first and then gone to get the stool. And, you know, this was not, now I'm breaking away from Mehera's voice. This was not early in the day of their lives with Baba. All of them learned long ago. Baba said, you know, I know what I asked you was often impossible. Just try first, and then, you know, that's obedience. Try, and then, you know, say, Baba, you know, help me. So Baba said, don't you think I know that? You should have tried first. And Mehera, I was getting in a silent way that Mehera was saying that she not only disobeyed and displeased Baba, but she missed an opportunity that maybe Baba wanted, you know, to put his hands together and give her a boost up onto the horse. So she missed out on that. And also, she's depriving Baba of the opportunity to help her do that. So it was like a big deal. And she never forgot it. So I felt very grateful to Baba that he prompted me to ask her this question, because to my knowledge, it's the only time that Mehera ever disobeyed Baba. And that's significant. But it also made me feel, well, if Mehera has disobeyed him, there's hope for all of us, right? Okay. I don't usually like to say anything before each of the poems, but I have to preface this one because it sounds like it was written during this current thing that the world is going through now, but it's not. It was written quite some time ago. Baba, everything is crumbling. Life as I knew it long ago perished, and I am perishing along with it. Not merely all that we want, not just the structures of life itself, but even the components of life, the thousand things that propped us up. They've all washed ashore like planks of wood and scraps of lives after a shipwreck. Even the sea itself has washed away, and now it's just you, master of all worlds, master of all the unknowing masters, master of all the unknowing masses, master of all would-be masters, and beloved master of all your lovers. Life as anyone knew it has been shattered like a mold, and what is emerging from within bears no resemblance to what encased it. Everything we grope for just drifts away, mercifully leaving no handhold for us to grasp onto. Meher, you are more God as a man than when you reside only in your infinite state, living in front of us as what we once thought was impossibly remote. After so many years, we are still full of weaknesses and faults, but Baba, we are also touched by fear that we might never be with you, never get to walk with you in this world. Please, Baba, help us to accompany you on your roads. Help us to be worthy companions. Help us to please you. And Baba, please help us to be yours.
Beautiful.
Jai Baba. Dear Baba, it's too much. Too much emotion for one lifetime. Since first meeting you, there's been no end to my tears. Every human connection strums that silent central chord, sounding it down through the core of my being. When is the time I can see without weeping? When is the time I can hear without sighing? How can I ever serve you when my tears are ever serving me? What I have isn't love. You have shown me that I have nothing but weakness, as I am supported and sustained by your love. Every human contact has your vibrant love thrumming all through it, the melody of all melodies humming with one unstoppable silent note, pouring its sound, patient, irresistible, and forever through all that there is. How can I stop weeping without your help, Lord? It is far too much emotion for one life. Even for each such moment of a life. Seeing you as you and seeing you in all, it really is too much for me, even though I could never turn away. Never turn my eyes from your unequaled glory, so simple in all your all-pervading transcendence. Who could ever serve you but that you help them to feel and yet not vibrate out of existence, to love and yet not be made useless by all that love? There is no end to your love, and maybe no end to my tears either. And there will be no end to my need for your help. The moment I saw you, my heart and my being and all of my useless fate dropped right into your hands with no effort of my own, even as you held my eyes constantly with yours. Since then, I have wanted always to give you everything. You deserve far, far more and nothing less. All this and more my heart silently pours into you every moment that we share. I am ever at your hand, ever at your feet, ever gazing at your face and your being, and ever beholden to you for all that I am and all that I have. You know that my every unspoken and unexpressed word, all of them comprehended through your compassion and understanding, even as you give to me all of yourself. Nothing is left of me but your service and my weaknesses and my tears, and you know which it is of these that I want to remain. How can I tell anyone that my prayer is the prayer of all prayers, that you have bound me to you in such ways that you even give me the silent words which become my prayers? You give me contentment and desperation all at once. You have always been mine. Somehow I will always be yours.
Give me silent words that become my prayer. That is beautiful.
Dear Baba, we here in this life, we're stuck with each other. Even those we love, and even those we truly like and admire. Even with those we love and those we truly like and admire, there is always something missing. What we really want is to be with you, to love and walk with you. That is really the only true life, isn't it so? Everything we do, everything we love, it really is just a stand-in, as we always feel our own vacancy and miss you so much. Every single one of us wants to be with you, each of us, at least sometimes. You beautiful man, you beautiful God, you beautiful whatever you are. Each and every one of us really wants only to be with you. Everything is a standby to somehow make living with you possible. Every relationship, every government, all social conventions, every possible etiquette, and whatever religion has ever existed, even what passes for spirituality, is an ineffective time pass, since real spirituality is mostly maturity. The only reality for me is to be by your side, to follow you as you walk and work here among us, somehow permitted to serve and accompany you, and in the privacy of my heart, to silently adore you beyond all adoration. Your companions who actually did this, they gave us so much of you, but they also poured into us the thirst for that life, to want that with you, rather than just to want God and realize God and disappear. Besides, you have shown that this life with you, even now, is also a form of merging into you. Even as we live and walk in the mundane lives you have given us. And one day I pray you will beckon to me so I can live and walk this mundane world with you. Maybe I don't know what it is that I'm asking for and the impossible realities of that life. How could I ever joyfully live that life and serve you at your hand when I can barely stay with you throughout the day now? But I am asking you anyway, in spite of my constant cravings. That life with you is what I really want, Baba, and then this world will be transformed, even as I walk and drink and eat in it. For I will finally get to share your meals and share your roads with you. I'm going to share a story. It's a short one, of Meru. Meru is very kind to me with her time. And very briefly, I remember when I first came to Baba, it was already after he had dropped his body, but it was only 5 short years after that. And I remembered thinking, God, if I knew that Baba was really ill, or if I knew that he had dropped his body, I would drop everything and rush to India. And I made a vow in that moment that if I ever heard that Mehera was dying or had died, I would drop everything and rush to India to be there. Well, long story short, life intervened, and more specifically, I allowed myself that day in May back in 1989 to be dissuaded from going to India. And it's totally unnecessary for me to go into the details of that. The fact is, I allowed myself to be dissuaded. And the burden of that never really left me. I felt like I had let Baba down, not because I made an oath, because I came to realize actually oaths are almost a waste of time. There is nobody who can keep almost any oath. It's Baba's help that allows us to do anything, literally. Anyway, I was still, nevertheless, I was upset with myself, oath or not. And on one of my trips subsequent to Mehera dropping her body, I was sitting on the porch over by the steps that lead upstairs next to Meru. And it was a very quiet day, very, very quiet day. And the few pilgrims who did come walked right past us without a word and went straight into the bungalow to go have Baba's presence, his darshan, have their experience, as they should, as they should. Nevertheless, I realized I had a nice private moment with Meru. And we were just sitting there, and I suddenly blurted out to her about this, that I had wanted to be here, meaning India, Meherazad, when Mehera had dropped her body, that I had promised myself or Baba or whoever it was that I had made the promise to, and I had not fulfilled it. And I had always regretted it and felt really terrible that I wasn't here. And I asked her if she would share with me what Mehera's last days were like. Well, Meru looked at me, and she looked at me long and hard for quite some time. You know, we didn't talk. It was, I couldn't tell you how long, but she looked at me about as deeply, you know, I can remember very few times anybody has ever looked at me deeply like that. And after a little while, she took a deep breath, and then for the better part of another hour, proceeded to go through, to relive every day of the 2 weeks leading up to when Mehera dropped her body, and the day of her dying. And it's impossible for me to relate all of that now, but there was an element I would like to share with you because it provoked such a visceral response in me that I feel it to this day. And she said, I can't remember when this was, but it was, she said this was the last doctor visit that they were going, turned out to be the last doctor visit that they made before Mehera dropped her body. They got in the car, they were going to go to Pune. And Mehera at that point was so weak. Meru said that Mehera got into the car, Meheru was already in, and Mehera sat down next to her and just sort of slumped on, almost like melted onto Meru's body. And she said, Mehera couldn't even hold up her head, and she just let her head fall on my shoulder. And as she said that, it's almost like I could feel, not that I was in the car, but I could feel inside Meru, I could feel Mehera putting her head down on Meru's shoulder. If you gather my meaning, it was such a powerful moment of Mehera's weakness. Anyway, I was very thankful to Baba and to Meru for giving me all of that. And it completely removed whatever burden I had felt all those years about not being there. It didn't remove the fact that I didn't go, but it removed the burden of it when Mehera dropped her body. Some people want to sing, Baba, and I hear the love in their voices, and I feel the happiness flow from you to them, filling their songs. My song long ago became the endless litany of your name, an endless, seamless melody that the notes of my life are hung around. And even that is you, singing harmony to your own silent song. And when my own notes are not so harmonious, which is often enough, you always catch my eye and set me back in tune. Some people want to dance, Baba, and I am always moved by the grace you inspire. Oops, sorry. I am always moved by the grace you inspire, trying to turn what you inspire in them into evocative moments, movements that speak without words. My own dance is service, the only dance I know. I was born in great comfort with this dance, and once I could dance it for you, my joy knew no bounds. It is not so graceful a dance, but I feel your grace filling me in it, as with every step I follow your lead, and each step has your love. And if I misstep from time to time, you hold me closer and spin me around, returning me once more to your tempo, your rhythm, and your step. Oh, Baba, I love the art, but far more do I love the artful life with you. What is the use of poetry when every line, every couplet, every expressed thought falls far, far short of the light touch of your sleeve? The desire for that closeness is what you have put in me. Even to truly serve you here and now would be much better than poetry, since hypocrisy runs so deep in my blood. Oh, and what is hypocrisy, they ask? What can I tell them but that any breath that has the rasp of self-interest, that is betrayal and treachery supreme in light of what you give me every moment of every day, and how in spite of all that, you keep me in your sight and within the benevolence of your grasp. What good is any poetry except to talk about that?
Ask you a question that sort of leads into a question I've been wondering, and that is, did you write poetry before you came to Baba?
That's an interesting question. I wrote poetry from childhood. I don't remember any of it, but I remember I wrote poems in my childhood and gave them to my mother. I can't remember what they were about. And then I stopped. And then one day in high school, a friend of mine said, oh, our English teacher gave us our first assignment. He told us we should write a poem. And all of a sudden, it was like this sudden force. It was like, oh, a poem, I'm gonna write a poem. You know, I had never thought about doing it before, because at that point, I couldn't even remember that I had written poems as a child. And so even though it was not my assignment, nevertheless, I wrote a poem. My first, essentially what it amounts to was my first poem. And I gave it to my friend to show his English teacher. And the English teacher liked it so much that he read it out to his class. And he asked me to come meet him. So I went to meet him, and we became close friends. And I even ended up becoming the best man at his wedding 8 years later. And we remained friends to this very day. It's a very interesting thing. Anyway, I did write poems, but then I went through a crisis in my life shortly before I came to Baba. And by that time I had stopped writing. And after I came to Baba, I had this inspiration from Baba that, whereas before, I always thought of poetry as being so important, so paramount. Now nothing was important. The only thing that was paramount was Baba. Regardless of anything, there was never anything that he didn't supersede. And I had this feeling that I felt was inspired by Baba, which was any time that I felt the inspiration to write, instead of reaching for a pen and a paper, to stop anything that I was doing and just give my attention 100% to him. That in that moment of inspiration, what he really wanted from me was to just give him my full attention. So that's what I did. I didn't start writing poetry for Baba. About a year and a half later, 2 years later, a friend of mine who I had known in high school, who was a Baba lover and who in fact was my Baba contact, she said, Eric, you used to write poetry. Don't you ever write poems about Baba? And I explained to her what had happened with me, that I, in these moments of inspiration, that I decided to give myself totally to his remembrance, to try to take everything out of my mind and thoughts and heart except him. And she said, well, that's very good, but it's been a couple of years now. I think maybe Baba wouldn't mind if you wrote about him. And I still don't know if she was right or not, but I gave in to her suggestion and I started writing at that point. And that's when I started writing for Baba.
When you wrote poetry before you met Baba, was it devotional poetry?
It was poetry. It wasn't devotional poetry. It was more, and it wasn't trying to understand. I didn't even know how to put it. It wasn't Robert Frost. It was more like trying to put it was like I was trying to compose epic poetry that would transpose whatever the mystery of life was into some sort of semblance of a story, because that's all I had. And of course, that's all that most people, except for the God-realized ones, write about. They try to do this other thing that is not writing from the source of truth. It's writing about truth and clothing it in other things. So no, my poetry was not devotional. It's nothing at all like this. And in fact, when I first started to write poetry for Baba, I was flummoxed completely. I did not know how to write for him at all. I did not have a voice yet that I could write in, if you understand my meaning. A writer has to have a voice that they're writing in, their voice. And I was totally perplexed. And as Baba always does, he provided the answer one day when I was trying to write, and I couldn't write, do any of you remember the game Pickup Sticks? Well, Pickup Sticks is all these little spindly things, and anything that I would ever write, it was like you took a bunch of pickup sticks and dropped them on the table. The disarray that happened on the table, that was what my writing was, just nothing, And I felt Baba tell me very surely, write for people 1,000 years from now. And I understood immediately what he meant, what I think that he meant. I did not take it as a presumption that he meant my writing is going to last for 1,000 years. But think of people 1,000 years from now who not only never met Baba, they never met his mandali, they never set foot in the Meherabad and Meherazad when it was right after Baba had walked out the door, so to speak, and the air still had the vibration of his being, as a man there, as the God man. So I started writing completely unencumbered by writing to those people, so that I could feel free in trying to describe what I was feeling.
Right.
And that was the beginning of being able to, at least, I don't think my work is very good, but at least I try to express my own feelings, and I feel I'm able sometimes, somehow, to at least express myself a little bit. And in doing that, Baba helps me understand his relationship with me better.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. What I like so much about your poetry is that it's it's so devotional, and it's so steadfast in its devotion. To me, it's really lovely.
So what?
Steadfast. It's so steadfast in its devotion, and it's a lovely quality. I think to see in poetry about Baba. for me, it's very inspiring.
Well, I'm glad you get something from it.
Thank you
Something
for
of
sharing
Baba. I'm
with
glad you get something of Baba from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And since we are in relationship to Baba, to witness someone else's relationship to Baba, is very inspiring. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Appreciate you sharing that very much, and for the stories also really add to it.
Do you have time for a couple more, or have I run
Our
over?
time is up, so I think we
Okay.
need to wrap it up, unfortunately, but
Then that's it. Good.
such a lovely hour of hearing your stories and your poetry. Really appreciate you sharing them. Does anybody else have any questions before we close out? I'm afraid I used all that time
It's
to
okay.
ask my own questions.
No questions, but just
Okay.
just gratitude. Thank you, Eric.
Elaine, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Thank you, Eric. We miss seeing your poems on a weekly basis, usually on Facebook. So this has been lovely to hear them again. Thank you so
Hi,
much.
Rainey. Hi,
Hi.
Rainey. Love to you and your whole wonderful family.
Thank you.
And, give Franny a hug. Franny had a hug for me. And,
Oh, little Miss Artist. Yes, I will.
yeah. And, I just, I sort of gave up on Facebook. So forgive me for that. I just, there's a lot of reasons I can't go into it now. We can talk about it some other time.
But I met you I only see you in the garden. And you never read your poetry in the garden.
I can't hear you, Arsenio. What did you say?
I can only see you. I only have seen you, and I only see you in the garden. You know which garden?
Yeah, the Great Garden.
Great garden. But you never told me that you were a poet in the garden.
Why would I tell you that?
Because we could sit down and talk.
I'm a postmaster.
I'm very happy when I saw the Tracey's email. I made an effort tonight. Usually I don't because I go to bed very early, but I made a point to listen to you because you don't give me the opportunity. But now when they reopen the garden again, I'm going to capture you. Now the garden is closed. You see what you
Now you're done for. Look out.
Arsenio, I'm always happy to share with you. I have to tell you, do you know anybody that introduces themselves to you and say, "Hi, I'm Joe Smith. I'm a poet"? That's probably somebody you don't want to know. Besides, I don't think of myself as a poet. I'm just, I try not to think of myself at all. Of course, I'm not successful in that.
Arsenio, right, beautiful poetry. So maybe you all can trade poems sometime in the garden. That would be a really fun thing to do. His work is fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Arsenio, since you live here, why don't we just get together and then
It's not the
then I'll
same
be happy to.
the garden, but let's do that.
Well, if I read in the garden, we might be disturbing somebody else who came there for quietude.
Not too bad. They can go someplace else. It's just one.
Oh, but that's where they're going.
Yeah, but you take one to a poem each. Do 4 the first time, 6 the second time, 6 days the third time. Oh no, Arsenio goes to bed early. 6 hours the third time.
Rainey, just very briefly, my son Jeremy, he remembers that you gave him a lift to the airport one time.
I did. Yeah, I love that boy.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you so much, everybody, for your.
Yeah, thank you, Eric.
Thanks
As usual, I enjoyed your poems. Jai Baba.
Yeah.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba,
Thank you.
everybody.
Jai Baba.
Thank
Jai
you,
Baba, Eric.
Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Baba.
Baba.